Hey guys, thanks for joining me this week on For All Things Lexington. It's the only show dedicated to Lexington, South Carolina. Here, you'll hear me talk to people, groups, bands, and organizations about where to go, what to do, and who's who in and all around our beautiful Lake Murray. I'm your host, Angela Barrett, and this is For All Things Lexington. Hey guys, thanks for joining me again today. I have Trina Winde. She is the author, let me get the book, of the brand new, and I do mean brand new release, of Preacherman. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I am excited. You and I have known each other for a while now. Prior to this, we are both in real estate and happen to work at the same office. But just like this little sidebar for me, this is one for you. I mean, I can learn all about it. So now, first book?
Yes.
When did you start writing? This is a two-part question. When did you start writing this, and did you know it was going to be a book when you started?
Okay, so I started writing in my 30s, and then this I kind of started in my 40s. And I did, but I was going to a mega church at the time. And so, you take, as a writer, you kind of pull inspiration from different scenarios. So I didn't know it was going to be a book. I kind of sat down and, started writing, and it, the story just kept developing. So
how long did it take to do it?
Probably about a total of 10 years.
Wow.
Just because I was being a mom.
Sure.
I was working, and, sometimes I would take a month or two and just put it down because life would get in the way. And so it just kind of took time. Now, mind you, I'm working on the next one, and it's not going to take 10 years.
Good. Good. Now, this was just released
May 20th.
May 21st, 2024. So we're talking about just released.
Yes, brand new.
So tell us, without giving the whole book away, tell everybody a little bit about what this is about.
So it's the story of a guy named Charlie Nettles, and he grew up with kind of a staunch tent revival pastor daddy, and, they traveled the coast and with his mama, and he ends up in a little town in South Carolina called Sinclair, and, meets his best friend and a love, and he suffers some tragedy. And then it kind of fast forwards to his life now. And it's really a story of, it's got lots of twists and turns. So the feedback I'm getting is it keeps you going. There's lots of stuff that kind of keeps you going. But he ends up back in Sinclair after he suffers a really, crazy tragedy. And so he has to kind of go back to the small town where he grew up and face the ghosts of his past. And so I think it's an inspirational story, though. I do. I think it's, the reader will laugh, they'll cry, they'll, go, what? Why did that happen? So I think that, there's lots of interesting little twists with Charlie Nettles.
Well, I haven't obviously had a chance to read it because it just came out, but I can't wait to read it. So now, it's not a true story.
No, it's fiction.
Is there anything like places, parts of the story that have, I don't know, you pulled from maybe a story in your life, somebody else's life, or even some of the characters?
Well, it's funny because, Charlie loses his mother at a young age. And that's not a big reveal because it's kind of in the beginning. But during the book, I was grieving my mother. And so I think I could relate to Charlie's character because I was dealing with a lot of grief myself. But I think when you write and you have that kind of creative acumen, you tend to pull things from, it could be a conversation I have with you. I could have a character in a book and I'm like, I love her jewelry and her look and her things. So this character is going to kind of loosely be based on Angela, so I kind of pull from life and with this, my inspiration and a lot of it, some of it, I should say, during the time I was grieving was with my mom. That would be a big parallel. And then, of course, I went to a mega church. And so I was very curious about that world and the business of that world, because it's mega churches they're just so like big, bright and shiny, so you wonder, how does all this work? Like, what's the behind the scenes? So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, who is your favorite character in the book?
Oh, that's tough. There's something I love about all my characters. I love Charlie because of his resilience and his heart. I love my character Jeremiah. He is, he works in the local diner and he just always has such good energy and, he has a good relationship with Charlie. And I love the dynamics with him and Wesley, his best friend, and his twin. I mean, so it would be hard to say, but I would have to say I love my main character, Charlie, just because he really, he's so well-rounded. And even though he suffers, he goes through a lot of the same. He's just very human. He's just like you and I. He's making mistakes. He's doing things and he's not sure, And I love his genuine nature as he's kind of working through all this stuff.
Right.
And tragedy and, triumph.
So, what was the inspiration, I guess, from the beginning when you started this?
When I started, I was going to a megachurch, and I was very curious, and I was just fascinated by that world. And I will tell you too, Angela, this story is not a Christian fiction. It's mainstream. It does have some Christian themes, but it's I just had a brain lapse.
It's okay. But you were just saying that it's not, when people read Preacherman, this is not going to be a religious book.
No, it's a mainstream fiction.
Right.
And so I feel like it was really inspired because I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would have this story would come to me. I feel like God gave me this story. I would pray about it and, I don't know, this was really kind of laid on my heart. And over time, people will say, did you have writer's block? Well, sure, there were times when I'd have to sit there and go, okay, what's next? But it may be that night I wake up and I'm having a dream and I'll write everything down. So it was a very interesting creative process, but I do feel like the story came, very divinely to me.
And so what do you think you want readers to take away when they read this?
I really want them to walk away and feel hopeful and know that this world is really good and there's forgiveness and, it is a story about God's redemption. It's not Christian fiction, but at the same time, it goes to show that your life can just be where you think it absolutely has nowhere to go and you feel so lost and so tragically just like you don't know what you're going to do next. And then, but yet you can still have an amazing experience at the end of it and learn from it and grow from it,
Right. Sure. I mean, I guess that's everybody's hopes with every tragedy that comes along.
Yeah.
And we all have them, whether we, like to think about them or not. But, you do hope there's a good outcome in the end. So what do you think? Obviously, you've written this book. What do you think makes a good story? I mean, what makes a story a book?
Well, I think that it really has to be a page turner. I think you have to grab somebody in that first 5 pages.
Yeah.
You got to pull them in because even myself as a reader, if I start reading a book and the first chapter I'm bored, I'm not going to waste, 250, 300 pages of my time doing that. So it really has to have the elements of that spot in the book where it brings the, called the art, right? where the everything kind of comes to a head. But I think the best elements of a story are the ones that keep the reader engaged. Every chapter ends and they're like, oh, I got to get to the next chapter.
Right.
What's going to happen next?
Right.
And so I think that
cliffhangers at the end.
you do. You have to have, interesting little snippets that people want to continue on.
Right. I was talking to Stephen Jacobs, who wrote The Lake Murray Murders, and I was telling him, I did get a chance to read that. It was an easy read, and I liked it because I know you've probably done the same, where you've picked a book and you had to write in the front the names of the characters, and so you keep up with who is who, and I'm like, I'm sorry. You lost me here. I just can't I got to put it down. But yeah, you're right. At some point in time, because for me, I don't have time to read a lot. But when I do, like you said, I want it to be one that I'm fully engaged in. Almost like, because the good thing about a book versus a movie is I can imagine these characters as I see them. And
Right.
like my own movie in my head. And if I have to keep doing this at the beginning to figure out who's who, well, my movie stopped and now I'm not interested. But yeah, when you can get to keep going, like you said, it's just that continuous movie. You've made it into your own. Once you see it on the, if it's changed into a movie, it's like, I took some of the fun out of it.
Well, I do want my reader to be able to visualize.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be able to see Charlie in their mind's eyes. I want them to be able to picture Sinclair, the little town, and South Carolina. I want them to smell the French fries in Jeremiah's diner.
Yeah.
I want them to see Jensen, be able to picture it as they're reading. I want them to become a part of this world.
Right.
The description to be not so flowery and overwhelming that you're like, oh my God, please.
Right.
But just enough to where you feel like I can see that.
Yeah.
I can picture them in my mind. And when you walk away, I want you to miss Charlie. I want you to miss my characters and go, God, I want some more of that. I want to hear more about his story or her, their story.
Right. I'm like you. That's my favorite part about it, because my husband will say, let's watch this movie. I'm like, I read the book. I do not see the movie because it's just going to totally ruin it for me now.
Yeah.
I have those characters just like I want them.
That's right.
So what is your favorite part about being a writer? What have you found so far?
So when I was younger, I was very involved in acting. And in school, I was a theater major. I had an agent. I was going on more commercial type camera work as opposed to theater stuff. And I loved the fact that you could take on a character. And I think the creative part of writing is what I'm in love with, is creating characters and these imaginary places and these towns. And it's just the whole creative process. And I think the way my brain works, I get an idea, and for me, it's fun adding on to that idea, to add on to that character, to add on to that place. And at the end of it, I've created an imaginary world.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the best part, because with acting, you're just portraying one character. And in this, I can portray every character that I want to.
So do you find yourself, when you're writing, a little bit kind of like that you sort of not become, but sort of get in as that character? To make it truly right, like you want it to?
Well, it's like they say when you're acting, you get into character.
Right.
So in these moments, that Charlie is experiencing, I, in my mind, am imagining, if I was in this situation, what would I feel? Would I feel excitement? Would I feel sadness? Would I feel elation? What would I feel in those situations? And what would my responses be? Would I physically, snap my finger or look away? So I'm visualizing everything. And so it's kind of like you take on the character.
Right. Well, now how much research, was, again, because I hadn't had a chance to read it yet, it just came out. How much research did you have to go and do? I know you said, obviously we're at that church, but surely, I guess you've been to Seneca, South Carolina several times, and
well, Sinclair's an imaginary.
Oh, Sinclair, yeah.
It's not. I wanted to create a place that
okay.
was. I didn't want to have them to to think, oh, well, this is the town. I wanted to have my own town. But so as far as research goes, I talked to a number of pastors and really kind of tried to learn the business of the church. And, the story itself is total creativity, is total fiction. So that's not based on any particular pastor's life or any of that.
Right.
But the business is what I needed to understand. I needed to understand the daily workings of a church. How do they meet in the mornings? Do they, do these megachurch pastors travel a lot? Like, what does their life look like? And a lot of them are writing books and traveling, abroad and trying to manage their lives. And, it's a juggle. So I had to use my imagination a lot, but I also talked to actual pastors in a couple different churches.
Gotcha. Now, what do you think is next? You said you've got a book you're writing. You've already started.
Yeah.
And is it sequel to this?
It will take place in the same town. And it's going to have a little bit of a different twist. It's going to have a lot of the same characters, but I'm adding in a few, and it's going to explore human trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Which is a little different, but that doesn't mean the whole book is going to be all serious. But I want to bring light to that. I feel like it's an epidemic, and I would love to have the ability through my writing to bring, light to that and to, funding to it, and, help these people that go on these missions and save women and children and men. So it's going to have that element, and there's some other elements I'm working on. I'm only on chapter 3. And so I don't always sit and do a formal outline.
Sure.
I start with a loose outline. So right now it's pretty loose, but that's so
it will talk about the singing pants.
That's right. It will take place in Sinclair, and we will have those same characters, but it's going to come from another character's perspective.
Nice.
Which will be interesting. Well,
yeah. So where can people get this book? Amazon.
Okay, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. I mean, it is on a lot of sites. In fact, I Googled it, and there was a bunch of different bookstore places that you could, but I think most of the people that are buying it on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble.
I gotcha. No, probably not yet, but hopefully some of the local shops here will pick this up.
Yeah, I'm working on that aspect of it, as far as some local bookstores and things like that, and trying to do some signings at, my website is trinafwinde.com. So I'll be posting, any events, if I have a new bookstore that it's going to be available in, I'm going to add all those things to my website kind of as I go.
Well, good. Well, I am looking forward to reading this one.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to read a local author's book, this is Preacherman.
Yes.
Trina Winde, just like it's spelled.
That's right.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or know someone you'd like to see on the show, contact me at forallthingslexington.com. That's the number 4, allthingslexington.com.
This episode has been brought to you in part by Preacherman, written by author Trina F. Winde. A story of faith, love, and the haunting presence of loss. See it at trinafwinde.com, Barnes & Noble, and at Amazon.
And by Angela Barrett at homematterssc.com. Building on what matters to you.